When we give cheerfully and accept gratefully, everyone is blessed. Maya Angelou. Bending Not Breaking, Season 2, Episode 15, Tales of Ba Sing Se. And we're back for another episode of Bending Not Breaking. I am Sunshine Mayfield.
This is Ben Pruitt.
And we are here in North Carolina, staying indoors, staying home, and recording another episode of Bending Not Breaking with our one and only fabulous producer, the Max Gonguer. Hello, Max.
Hello.
Welcome back. How are you doing this week?
My hands are clean, as is my state of mind.
A lot of hand washing, a lot of hand sanitizing, and a lot of staying home. Social distancing, y'all. It's important.
We're kind of doing it right now.
There's three of us, and we're, close to 6 feet apart from each other. Mm-hmm. And, we're doing what we can. And Ben and I live together, so you're,
Really, I'm the only one breaking the law.
breaking norms.
You're not breaking the law.
I feel bad about it, but, somebody's got to produce this podcast.
And we're not going out in public. It's not like we're doing this in a crowd of 10 people. It's just, there's no audience here. It's just us.
Someday, we'll be doing live recordings.
Ooh, that would be fun.
I'm down.
I'm so down. Let's talk. This is going to be a fun little episode.
Will it?
No, it is one that is known to make the people cry. When we hear
Reminds me
Ira
of Dear
sing,
Zachary. Makes you laugh, makes you cry.
that's right. You feel all the things. Dear Zachary, wonderful documentary.
Terrible
from
movie.
It's not. All right. First of all, it's not a terrible movie.
It's one of those movies that really lets you appreciate your cousins.
It's a phenomenal documentary, but it makes you angry. It makes you sad. There's moments where you laugh. There's moments where you're joyful.
I don't think I laughed once.
But it's a lot of sadness in that documentary.
Yeah.
Dear Zachary.
Don't watch it.
No, watch it.
You're
and
like a
just
cousin to me.
Be prepared to cry. So we have the Tales of Ba Sing Se episode. And Ben, we're looking through that through an interesting lens because not only is it just one lens, but we've got like 6 different parts to kind of look at this episode through.
Yeah.
And typically we have like an episode that's easy to kind of choose a theme through. This one, we just kind of had to pick a lens
like
and see
6
how it
episodes.
works. So we are going with the lens of service.
Service.
And Ben, what is service?
That's a great question. Sometimes I think you ask me that so you don't have to answer the question first. So I'm turning it on its head. Hey, Sunshine, what is service?
I would love to get to that, but first we have to do Max's uninformed recap. Max, are you ready for your clues for your uninformed recap? Ben, are you getting the clock ready?
I wasn't, but I can.
Let's do that. 1 minute on the clock after, and I'll tell you when. Max, the gang is waking up and grooming themselves with the exception of Toph. The last scene is Panthers lead Muck Muck to giant footprint after getting the scent from some of Appa's hair.
Can you say that again?
Yes. Panthers lead Muck Muck to a giant footprint after getting the scent from some of Appa's hair. Your key words are anthology, spa, zoo, date night, and memorial service.
Great.
Are you ready?
Yes.
1 minute on the clock.
Starting 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, well, this episode begins when the gang is waking up and grooming themselves with the exception of Toph. And the reason that Toph isn't there is because he is listening to the anthology of A Tribe Called Quest, which is a great hip-hop band that has released an anthology, I'm pretty sure. And where is he listening to that anthology? In the spa. And as soon as the last drummer kicks, Can I Kick It, he's like, you know what I really want to do right now? Go to the zoo. And then he finds a person there. He's not practicing social distancing. And while he's at the zoo, he meets up with a nice person with whom he is romantically interested. And they go on a date night. And unfortunately, that date night quickly turns into a memorial service. One of them gets murdered.
5 seconds.
And then the Panthers lead Muck Muck to a giant footprint after getting the scent from some of Appa's hair.
And that date night quickly turns into a memorial service.
Which
Has
is
that
typical.
ever-
That's
has
pretty
that ever-
typical for my date nights, honestly.
Yeah, is that what happens?
Yeah.
Very sad and somber events at the end of them.
I do a eulogy after every date I go on. Not because anybody died. It's more of a self-eulogy.
It's like the relationship is dead after
Yes.
the first date. Do you have an Can you do a eulogy that you've written just
Yeah.
off the top of your head, please?
Here lies the relationship of Max and
I was really hoping for a real name.
Yeah, me too.
it lasted one date. Over the course of 4 hours, they each enjoyed
4-hour first date. I
they
would
enjoyed
say-
one beer each. And the conversation really sputtered from there.
You
But
know-
they said their friendly goodbyes, knowing that they would never speak again.
You nursed one beer for 4
Look,
hours.
man, I'm not good at this.
At dating or talk or eulogies or
Oh, I think I'd be a phenomenal eulogy writer.
I actually think you'd be really good at that
a
too.
eulogizer.
Yeah. I could do that, but the dating is the hard part for me. I can write the heck out of a eulogy. Hopefully I won't have to anytime soon.
I was about to say, is that something you aspire to do?
Yeah, I would say let's not write so many eulogies. Hopefully,
You know, well, you've seen that movie, 27 Dresses. Have you seen 27 Eulogies?
is that how,
Starring
Katherine
Katherine Heigl.
Sunshine, what does service mean to you?
well, I've got to do the recap real fast. Now. It's
Oh.
my turn for the recap.
Oh, okay.
Are you ready? You give me 30 seconds.
Okay. On your mark, get set, go.
The gang is waking up and grooming themselves with the exception of Toph, and then Katara and Toph do a little spa day, and then someone calls Toph ugly, and then we all realize that she's incredibly beautiful inside and out. Then we get the tale of Iroh, where he gets to go and help out a bunch of different people, but then has a very sad memorial service for his son at the end of it. Then we get the tale of Aang, and he buys a zoo. Then the tale of Sokka, where he does some haikus, and then gets kicked out of a poetry class. And then the tale of Zuko, where he goes on a date
5
night and
seconds.
uses firebending. Uh-oh! And then Momo is searching for Appa and finds his footprint.
Did they turn this episode into a Matt Damon Scarlett Johansson vehicle?
I think this inspired the Matt Damon Scarlett Johansson vehicle. Yeah,
Neato.
yeah.
I can kind of say I've seen an episode of this.
You were the one person who saw We Bought a Zoo.
Yeah, I've seen at least bits and pieces of it anyway.
Yeah, I don't think I've known anyone who's watched the entirety of that movie. Maybe we'll do that as a little bonus episode, and Max we can do a look at We Bought a Zoo through a lens.
I am in. We are about to be sitting in our bottoms for a long time watching movies that nobody else saw.
Or you could watch
could watch Avatar: The Last
Airbender.
I'm really busy. I'm sorry.
I think I did all right. There's a lot of stories to get through there.
Sure.
Okay, Ben, what is service?
No. I think you misunderstood.
I've
what
really
I said
been holding
earlier.
down this episode. I think it's your time to talk. What is service?
You know, I'm going to serve our listeners by giving them a chance to hear you first.
All right. Well, so service is an interesting thing. When I was thinking of it,
You're vamping.
I would never. Really, it's the action of helping or doing work for someone.
This is why I did this.
It's also a love language. Acts of service is a love
Oh,
language.
that's a great thing to pull
Yeah,
from.
it's one of the 5, and that's really what I was looking at. Where were these acts of love coming from? These acts of service, and how do we see that through each of these episodes? And so I was excited to kind of see each story and see where were these moments where service was really a tool in showing love to someone else, and that's really the way I took this lens. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I really couldn't have put it better myself.
You're probably right. Anyways, so if we go to I think there's one of the things that I'm really enjoying doing for each of the lenses, and it's really kind of trying to find outside artwork or articles and things about each of the lenses we look through, because we've said it before, we're not experts. We have people who've had experience in
Super
working
not
with,
an expert.
We've worked with people for a long time.
Yeah.
But we're not experts on these things, and so honestly, I just try to continue learning. And an article that I came across from Christopher Berglund on Psychology Today, which I'm really enjoying, is the neurobiology of giving versus receiving support. And the long and short of it is the study out of Pittsburgh University, go Pirates, shows that the brain really benefits from giving.
I believe it's the University of Pittsburgh. You might be right on Pittsburgh University, but it's definitely the Panthers.
It's the University of Pittsburgh, but I was shouting out the Pirates of Pittsburgh.
The baseball team?
Yeah.
Why?
You love them. That was a little.
I thought they were from
nod to
Latrobe.
you.
No, that's just where the Steelers have their training camp.
Arnold Palmer is from Latrobe.
Why are we having this conversation?
Because of Pittsburgh. Steel Town. Anyway, so.
Black and yellow, black and yellow. Black and yellow.
What it really gets down to is that by giving social support, you reduce stress-related activity in your brain. You increase your reward-related activity in the left and right ventral striatum. I don't know what that is. And then you have a greater caregiving-related activity in your septal area. But ultimately, what it shows is you create a spiral of positivity in you and the person that you are serving that actually helps your brain get stronger and helps your brain heal itself faster. And how cool is that? Just by showing acts of service to another person. And I thought that was really, really nice.
There's a lot of data around how giving and serving and putting others before ourselves is beneficial for our minds and for our bodies, literally. And so I think that you can find a lot of articles probably also from sources other than Psychology Today.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I highly recommend looking those up and checking it out and thinking about who you can serve, for sure.
And we'll do that all episode. But let's start with the very first tale, shall we?
Or
Or
we could start before the first tale.
did you watch the intro through this
Every
lens?
time.
Tell me about it, Ben.
So the Avatar
That was a very Grease
role,
moment. Where I felt like Olivia Newton-John, where she's like, "Tell me about it, stud."
So the Avatar role is one of service, right? So I'm curious to dive into this concept of forced service as well as voluntary service, and what the difference is between the two, and how differently they affect our bodies in a way, right? So because the Avatar cycle is very interesting, because there is guaranteed to be someone, unless the Avatar dies while in Avatar state, that reincarnates into being the next Avatar, and that person has the burden of serving the world by maintaining balance. And so does that forced servitude, does that matter? The fact that, does that affect anything? And I'm just curious. It's something I thought about. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
I think it's interesting because the difference between someone tells me I need to do something versus I choose to do something, I think typically my response is going to be different in those moments.
I agree.
Even if I know both are having a good cause, one still feels like it's not my choice, and thus I'm less likely to be inclined to do that. Not to mention the barrier of if it was someone that says, "Hey, I need you to save the world."
Yeah.
And
to a 12-year-old.
To a 12-year-old. And we see what happens in that moment, right? Like, he runs.
It's pretty traumatic.
It's very daunting. He runs and hides, and we have 100 years without the Avatar because of that.
And a mass genocide.
And so it's an interesting concept to think about, too, if there are Avatars in canon that maybe didn't want to do the role.
Yeah, I'd be really interested in learning about that. Like, if you have read the comics and you know of lore around some of the past Avatars that maybe weren't interested in that kind of service or didn't live up to the burden that was put on their shoulders, I'd be really curious to hear about it.
Yeah, because it would be interesting how you navigate that. Either not acting, and is there just gaps in time where the avatar should have been there, or does it go a little bit darker than that?
Well, it's just interesting because it goes back to the concept of, to me, fate in a way. Like, yes, you are the avatar. You are the one who has been gifted with these skills. And that does not mean that you have to act on it. You still have the power. It's just the burden of having to make the choice.
Well, if you've gone and trained, because it seems like most avatars still need to do the training to obtain all of this power.
Exactly.
But also, as we've seen the avatar state kind of kick in as a protection mechanism, that even if someone did try to harm themselves with the avatar state, like, keep them from doing that. And so really you're just in the cycle of, like, I have to do this.
Well, with great power comes great responsibility, right? So to me, great power in this situation means this great opportunity to serve. And with that opportunity to serve, you have a responsibility to live into your potential to do that. And so in what way and how is that different from you and I having the gifts that we are born with and that we have nurtured and cultivated throughout our lives, whether we were born with them or not? What responsibility do we have to utilize those innate things and those things that we have cultivated, nurtured, and grown to serve?
For me, I think a huge responsibility to do that. I think there's a conversation I typically have with kids when we're talking about behaviors, and a lot of it, especially with some of the older kids I work with, is whether you like it or not, you're being looked up to by the younger kids in a camp program or in an after-school program, and your behavior needs to be in responsibility of being a role model for those students, which is not something you asked for, and is not necessarily fair that it was put on you, but you have a responsibility to show other people the right way to behave. And that's a conversation I have frequently. And that's not something that anyone chose to do. It's just kind of by existing, you have a responsibility to take care of the people around you. Which is, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but
I think to me that's a little different. And the reason is, like, they signed up for a job. And that job, to me, that's the job description, is living into being a better human being in front of those kids and being that role model.
I'm talking about other kids in the program.
Oh, okay.
Like, I'm talking about, like, my 4th and 5th graders when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
I see.
And so that's where that conversation comes into play. Is we are inextricably connected. We have a duty to serve each other. We have a duty to be there for one another, and your talents are there to help be in support of that and to be in service of that.
If you have a really great way to teach that lesson, I want to hear it. I've tried telling 4th, 5th graders, 3rd graders, high schoolers about this and leaning on them for
sometimes
their leadership.
It works.
And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, right? And so if you have a great way of instilling that, tell us about it. Send us a voicemail. By the way.
Yeah.
Send us more voicemails.
At thearchive@gmail.com. We love hearing your voicemails. Send them our way.
Please.
thearchive@gmail.com. All right, let's get into the episode.
Great.
The tale of Toph and Katara. Moment of service in there for you?
You know, I feel conflicted. So
tell me about it.
I think it's interesting, and I think it's interesting that Toph, being blind, is the one who cares least about her appearance. I think that's a natural state. If I were blind, I would care a lot less about appearance as well. I think. I'm not blind, so I can't know that. But my assumption is that if I were, I would probably care less about appearance. And the fact that I think Katara sees it as a service to Toph, that she is investing in Toph's outward appearance. And I think what makes it service rather than like, oh, bless your heart, let me help you. that intentional, like, hey, let me help. I think this is something that we could both use, not looking down on her saying, hey, you need this.
Right.
And I think what really sealed the deal for me was near the end of this little mini scene, or whatever you want to call it, where Katara and Toph have this moment of, it's not the outside that matters, it's what's on the inside. And that's not verbatim, but that's what came out and what came through for me. And so that to me, whole scene was really cool.
Yeah, I see it as service to sit there and say, hey, I see someone maybe struggling. I see someone who maybe needs a vacation, or Toph might not have been doing that, but it was an interesting moment for Katara to just kind of be like, hey, I would love to do this with you. Can we go? And maybe did Toph see it as a service to join her? Maybe Katara wanted to go.
That's a good point. Maybe.
And maybe Toph was like, I don't really care, but like Katara is interested in spending time with me, and I'm happy to go with her.
I like that. I like that idea.
And maybe that's a moment of service in there from Toph. And but reality is, I think they both need each other, and you kind of get that in that moment of camaraderie, especially when they're being picked on by the other girls in the town as they walk by, and the way that they are just kind of there for each other. And I think what I really like about this moment are the words of affirmation that they use for each other, and it's very specific on why they like each other. It's not this, oh, you're beautiful. It's very, it's a moment where they're really precise in the words that they use to describe what they like about each other, and I like that moment.
I think what came up for me while you were talking was this idea where I lost it.
No, bring it back.
I forgot.
That's okay. We all forget sometimes. If it comes back to you, you can bring it up. But let's jump a story, and let's just go to the Tale of Aang. Let's jump to the Tale of Aang.
I remember.
You got it.
It's when people offer you things and try to serve in a way that you do not want them to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I've felt that many times from many people, but people will try to offer a service, and I am actively not interested in this type of service that they are offering. And there's different cultures around the world where, for instance, if you walk into a home of someone else and they offer you something to drink or eat, it's impolite to say no. And then there are some cultures where you're supposed to say no. No, I don't know, thank you, no, thank you, and then you're supposed to accept. And then there are cultures where like everybody's
just say what you want.
Yeah,
right.
And so I think it's interesting because in this moment, like if I put myself in, I imagine myself into Toph, I'd be like, I don't want to go to the spa. I have zero interest in that.
Right.
Why would you invite? Like clearly, I don't care
Who's
about
paying?
That. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I really liked your suggestion there that maybe Toph was doing a service to Katara in that moment where they both mutually benefited from serving each other.
Yeah.
Okay, Aang's episode.
Let's talk about Aang. So Aang buys a zoo.
I see what you did.
Yeah, we'll save that tale for the very end. The Tale of Aang. The moment of service in this for me is exactly what it is. It's the willingness to say, "Hey, I've got a skill set I can use. I think that I can help corral these animals and build them a zoo out of this fence." And sometimes we get in over our heads when that happens, but it all works out in the end.
There's a Elements profile by a girl named Laurie Beth Jones. You have to pay for it. It's a personality profile. I think we've probably talked about it.
Yeah. Fire, earth.
This tale is like
water, wind.
Spot on wind.
Yeah.
Which
makes sense.
And he's an airbender, right?
Yeah,
and
right.
so this is spot on. Oh, I have an idea. Let's do it. And then zero thinking about like
zero planning.
There was
just
zero
ruckus.
planning involved. It was just like, we're going to do it. And all of a sudden this just mass chaos, a little tornado, if you will, throughout the town. And I just that's what really came up for me during this was like, we all have our ways that we can serve.
But if Toph had been there or Katara had been there,
they probably would have thought about it in a different way, right?
Can we do one animal at a time?
Yeah, let's potentially one species at a time,
yeah.
or like let's just like it was Very interesting. I think in what, like, yes, there are times when I've, like, said, okay, yeah, I'd love help. And then all of a sudden people start helping. I'm like, no.
No, not that way.
I appreciate it. Oh, God.
No, what I really wanted you to is to do this exactly the way I would have done it.
Exactly. And there's a really cool guy. His name's John Maxwell. He has a principle where if someone can do something 80% as well as you can, you should delegate. And oftentimes when you delegate, that if you perceive that in a way that they are serving you and allowing you to do
Other
more
things,
and allowing you, they're giving you the space and capacity to do other things that are important. And Aang's act of service here, it may not be at the level at which other people could have done it, but it was his idea. It was his thought. It was his compassion that made that happen.
And I think that's what's really at the heart of it, right? Is the intention behind it. And yes, we all screw up, or we say, hey, I would love to help, and we end up not helping as much as we should because we said we would do something, but it was over our head, and et cetera, et cetera. But the heart was there from the very beginning for him.
It was.
And he does a pretty good job of using his skill set to create a better zoo than what they were in.
Oh, like
more like
the end
habitual,
result.
like, rescue. It was more like a rescue sanctuary than it was like your quote unquote zoo.
I mean, the end result was significantly better than where they were. And even the zookeeper at the end of this tale was like, maybe you should stick to saving people.
Yeah.
Right? Because it wasn't worth the hassle that it took to get all that. I just thought that was interesting.
There's also sometimes you just got to do something when you're serving others, I think.
Yeah.
How many times do we get stuck in the, well, this isn't going to be feasible, or this isn't possible, or this, we can't do this, and then no one gets served, as opposed to serving people at 50%, which is better than 0%, and then working to serve better than that. Because if we're looking at the animals and that, like their living situations, their happiness are exponentially better than what they were, even though the process was messy.
Yep.
And I think that might be something important to highlight when we're talking about serving others.
Yeah.
Is that serving others and sometimes it being messy is better than not serving them at all.
Yep.
The Tale of Sokka. Short, sweet. Some haikus. I wasn't counting syllables. You're thinking about how you're going to respond? Talk to me about service with Sokka in a haiku. And go.
I would like to speak in haikus because they're cool. Haikus, really neat.
Yeah, that technically was 575.
I know.
But
I'm awesome.
where do we see service in this moment?
Service is something we need.
I hate this already, Stella.
I don't see service.
Haiku's really cool. Refrigerator.
Okay, I'm done with this.
He just got thrown out of the bar.
Yeah.
Good, I'm not supposed to be at a bar.
Where's the moment of service in this? Where do you see service?
I struggled with that in this one, actually.
Yeah.
And I did have a question. What seems to be poetry teacher is having a poetry slam battle with Sokka and then walks away. Like, Sokka has continued to be able to speak in haikus. It seems as though he's not getting stumped, and so she just walks away. Tell me about that.
Yeah, if her purpose is teaching, which I don't think we know what it is, but that seems like that's what it is her purpose
the assumption,
is
yeah.
teaching. One, he comes in there and he is disrupting the class, but by accident. Like, he got kicked through a window, but maybe she didn't see that. To call him an oaf from like the very beginning seems unkind. Is dehumanizing language. But she does that from Jump Street. And then he responds, also not super kind, but not, being incredibly disrespectful. And at some point I would just wonder if she feels beaten and is just like, this isn't worth it. And so she walks away and lets him continue to do his thing. But like, there could have been a better moment from that I would want out of my teachers, in the way that they teach.
I think I am seeing a lack of potential service here more than I'm seeing an act of service.
She could have used those moments as a way to improve his haikus.
Sure.
Maybe he didn't pay for the class. I'm not aware.
Yeah, and maybe she went to go get the guard. You know, we didn't see him until this moment where he messes up.
Maybe. I've never been paying attention. Maybe he's back in the back
Maybe
somewhere.
she was serving the girls, I think they were all female in the class, at least
by having the guard come and
remove him, escort him out.
For the girl's safety.
Yeah. And or maybe it was an act of service to leave the conversation knowing that
she would have only been meaner.
Maybe. Yeah.
If you realize you're out of your value system.
Exactly.
To just stop being there and to serve yourself and say, I don't need to be engaging in this.
Yeah. I'm curious if any of our listeners have a different perspective on service.
Where do you see service in this tale? Because that would be interesting to hear. Please email us, thearchive@gmail.com.
Tweet at us, Instagram us.
Then we get the tale of Zuko. Date night for Zuko. And
I like Jen.
Yeah, I do too.
She seems nice.
And my moment of service that popped out here was when he lights the lanterns.
Absolutely.
As an act of service, because he understands the joy that's going to bring her. Even though, and I think we mentioned this earlier as we've talked about it, like, he's gotten on to Iroh.
Absolutely.
For doing this. And even at the beginning of this tale, she's on to us as we're firebenders. And then seems pretty willing to be a firebender. As a way to impress her or to bring her joy.
And the story you told at the beginning was that service begets service, right? In a way.
Yeah.
We are more inclined to serve others when we have been served, right?
Yeah.
So I think what we need to realize is that Jen has been serving Zuko throughout this night. And what I mean by that is it is an act of service to continue to have a conversation with someone who is unwilling or unable to have that conversation with you. And clearly, Zuko was
well-intentioned.
I think clearly Zuko was unsure how he felt about this entire experience throughout the experience.
Yes.
Like, he's conflicted. He wants to be there, but he doesn't want to be there. He wants to enjoy himself, but he doesn't want to, like, give in to being like, oh, I don't want to make a life here. And there's this just internal conflict that he's battling through, and she is giving him the grace of continuing to talk to him.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, he's got these moments of we accept the love we think we deserve. Right, like he's
Perks being Wallflower.
Yeah,
Stephen Chbosky.
So we get those moments with, especially when she kisses him, and he kisses her back, but then very quickly, no. And he slams the door when he gets home to Iroh. My guess is out of somewhat anger of being frustrated with Iroh for kind of forcing him into that situation. But he just, that moment where he's like, it was a really nice night.
How was your night, Zuko?
Slam.
It was nice.
It was nice. Well, because he hasn't had those moments. He's had a couple moments similar, but few and far between. And moments of joy and happiness, especially when you feel like you haven't felt that, or that you don't deserve that, or you're waiting for the other shoe to drop.
It's so hard because I want Zuko more than anything to feel happy, right? Like I just want him to get over this and be himself and love himself and care for himself, and yet he's still not letting himself do it. And I think Jen is making a real effort and I think she would have continued to make that effort if she had been given the chance.
Yeah. Well, you said it takes time, and it's an act of service to continue pressing or to continue being there for someone, knowing that they might need it, but in the time might not want it. And then where's the line on that? That feels like a very fine line.
And everybody's line is different. Like, it is not Jen's responsibility to continue to do this with Zuko.
Well, and it could be boundary crossing at a certain point.
Exactly. And so this is a real picture into why we need therapy, right? Zuko, I'm gonna say it. I think would benefit a great deal from a therapy session or a year's worth of therapy sessions.
Wouldn't we all?
But yes,
Yeah.
but in, like,
But
but
in
this
this
is
moment.
But in this moment, this is like Zuko needs this space in order to confront himself and his feelings and the things that he's going through, and a safe space to have these conversations. And he doesn't have that. He's unable to do it because he can't have it with Jen, right? And nor is it her responsibility. So it's one of those things where a lot of times people like, oh, I'm going to fix them. Or I can, and that's just one of those things where you can do your best, but at some point you're going to resent having to do it rather than be all in all the time. So I just cautionary putting that out there.
Yeah.
Think about it. There's a lot to unpack in this
Short story.
3-minute short story.
You want to jump to the tale of Momo?
Momo.
Notice
how he said it right.
Well, it's written out on that one.
Oh, so you can read. I see.
Yeah. 2 moments popped up for me on this. One, we get a little bit of that forced service. Max, are you laughing at a joke?
I made Max laugh.
The world has gone mad. What can I do?
One is we get into kind of that forced servitude that you were talking about, where Momo gets grabbed and forced to dance with in the monkeys.
Yes, I took note of that.
That was
yes.
one thing I noticed. And then the other thing...
And it was immediate.
Oh, terrifying.
Like,
right?
that was... Yes. And, like...
How quickly he lost all of... Assuming we...
Well, and
know Momo's
would he
gender,
have
but
been
how quickly
forced...
he lost his ability to kind of have his own course of action.
Well, and he was forced into it by putting... Like, he was scared, and his fear drove him to the situation. And then he felt like, I'm assuming, like he couldn't leave immediately because he's still trying to figure out where his chasers are.
Yeah.
And being forced into that kind of a situation is...
Well, by multiple people,
rough.
The Panthers, the
It's
Cats,
kind of
whatever they were, and
it's
then
almost akin to next episode, actually.
yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then the other one goes back to your service beget service, which is Muck Muck lets the
Momo.
Panthers, cats out of their cage,
Panther kitties.
and then they immediately help him trace the scent back to Appa's footprint.
I just think it's a really that is a beautiful picture.
And then they're all
Service
sitting,
begets service.
Mm-hmm. Because they're all sitting there on top of the ceiling together, or on the roof. One gets a whiff of Appa's hair, and then is immediately like, I know where this is. I know the scent.
Well, it just reminds me a little bit about just bullies, right? And bullies bully people because it helps them feel powerful. It is an act of power.
Creating a power imbalance.
And what most of us fail to realize is that is indicative of something that is going on that is wrong in their lives. And I'm not saying and defending and saying we should, defend our abusers or work with our abusers, but I am saying that service begets service. And how can we serve the people who need it to prevent that bullying in the first place?
Yeah, and with all that, it goes back to you can empathize, and you still need to hold accountable for
Exactly.
actions.
Yes.
But when you feel safe to do so, how do you bring people in? Which is a perfect segue. Take a deep breath, everyone. The tale
Wait, it's the end of the episode. We don't have to do this.
of Iroh.
No. We already passed it. We can't do it.
Leaves from the vine.
Well, that's why. Why would you say that? You don't even need to say that.
So, the moments of service here are plentiful, but one that I think segues well is Iroh's ability to help the mugger.
That's my favorite.
And how he brings him in and has a conversation with him, and then you get this moment where no one's ever believed in me before.
Well, I mean, that's a position. First, I think we need to. Yes, that
Iroh's
is
in a position of privilege.
It is a position of
He
privilege.
feels safe enough to do this with.
He is able to defend himself in that moment.
Yeah, and
right?
and feels safe enough to have this conversation and bring him into that.
Which, again, with that power comes the responsibility to help. And he does. And that's massively impactful throughout this little tale. It's incredible. Like, it's watching him from everything from this flower in the very first thing to this crying child to these ragtag group of kids playing baseball to, or whatever game they're playing.
It's like earthbending soccer.
Earthbending soccer.
It's like foosball.
Foos soccer ball, earth.
Yeah.
You know, and to
Helping a mugger.
helping a thief,
Yeah.
a mugger, or a would-be mugger, right?
By seeing the best in him and also, like, being specific and calling that out and saying, like, I think you can be bad. Like, you're not a bad person, but this is a bad choice. And it doesn't seem like this is the person you are. And how helpful that was for that person to hear.
Yeah, it's one of the most beautiful moments in the show, much less the episode.
And then I wish I could have helped you the way that I helped them. Like,
Started tearing up.
it's
so good.
it's
tragic.
Max doesn't get it. As the producer, he's looking at two people teary-eyed. And how beautiful that moment is. And for me, the one thing that always gets me is how joyful he is when he sings the song at first to calm the crying baby in the streets or the toddler.
Yeah.
And that moment of joy that the toddler pulls on his beard and, like, they have that genuine moment of happiness. And you know it reminds him of his son. And the second time he sings the song, which is sadness.
Oh, it's just
and
grief. It's such grief. And
it only makes you resonate with Iroh more.
I think what I notice most about that is it's his tears, right? He's able to sing,
stuttering on the
being
song.
able, listen, like I was a vocal performance major in college. Being able to sing and cry and emote at the same time is a struggle.
Yeah.
It is hard. And oh my gosh.
What a moment. Honestly, one of the most iconic moments in the entire Avatar universe.
It's certainly the most memed.
People, that is a moment that hits the heart every
Yep.
time. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to jump into one of our practices, and we're also going to talk about this lens through the element air. So we'll be right back in just a second. And now we're back, and we're going to do a little practice called what, Ben?
Florilegia.
Florilegia. Perfect.
Yeah, I love how
right.
you said that.
I nailed it. All right.
Do you want me to try?
Nope. No.
Okay.
Max, are you good at pronouncing words?
Duh.
I don't. All right. Anyways,
That was Russian for yes.
Ben,
Da.
remind us of the practice, and then let us move forward, shall we?
Yeah, so essentially what we're doing is we have both theoretically found two little sparklets, things that shined out to us
Shine bright like a diamond.
while we were watching the episode, things that stuck out, and we're going to see how they interact with each other, and we're going to read them individually and then see how they help us see the show a little bit differently when we combine them.
Let's do it. All right.
Cool.
My quote.
Yep, I'm ready.
This is great. No one has ever believed in me.
Remind me what that part's from.
This is the moment where Iroh
This is the moment. Point.
helps the mugger see the error of his ways and says, "Do you really think I could be a masseur?" And Iroh's like, "Yes." And he's like, "This is great. No one has ever believed in me."
So why did you choose it?
I just think I love when moments of hope fill people, and I think that by Iroh's act of service and conversation with this man, that he was filled with hope, and I love that, and so that's why it stuck out to me.
I think it's so interesting how often people experience not being believed in.
Yeah. And how great it feels when someone does.
When someone really does.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I love about Iroh and his series of acts of service is that his acts of service were all about being like helping people feel seen.
Yeah.
And this is a moment where this guy feels truly seen. And I think that's beautiful. It really is. It's just a beautiful moment.
Yeah. All right. How about your quote?
So mine's from The Tale of Zuko.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you have quite an appetite for a girl.
Yeah. Why did that stick out to you?
It didn't stick out to me because I thought it was beautiful. It stuck out to me because
What a weird thing to say in that moment.
It is beautiful in
Write
a way.
a eulogy for that date night.
It is beautiful in a way, honestly, as I think about it. It's beautiful because Zuko's bumbling and he has no idea what to say in this moment.
He didn't swipe. She didn't have to message him first on a dating app. He didn't have to swipe left or right.
Zuko's trying really hard.
Oh.
And
is that what the app
is
means?
Messing around and messing
Just
up.
a bunch of tryhards.
Oh my god. Y'all. He's doing his best, okay? And he's messing up thoroughly, but it's beautiful because he's trying and he's like leaning in a little bit and he's you could tell he was trying to give her a compliment and she's just like, cool.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
And I genuinely don't advise using this as a compliment on your first date or any date. But I think that it's just, regardless of your partner's gender, that is not meant to be a gendered comment. But just in general, I think this stuck out to me and I wanted to lift it up. That's my sparklet.
Oh. So now we got to see how they interact with each other?
That's right.
Okay.
So we're going to hear yours first and then we'll go straight into mine.
This is great. No one has ever believed in me.
You have quite an appetite for a girl.
Interesting. That feels very deflating. Like I like in the context of someone being like, I'm really worth something. Someone just said something to me that was very kind, and then someone else comes by and says like a comment that's like, oh, you have a really big appetite for a girl, and you're like, what? Oh, I don't feel as good as I did seconds ago.
Tell me more about that. Like, why?
I just imagine someone like feeling very accomplished in something, and then someone coming and like saying a little slight at them to like knock them down a notch.
Well, yeah, I think my question, I want to validate that that's what you're experiencing, but my question is like, why is that a slight? You have quite an appetite for a girl.
I just hear that as a slight. I think probably because the way that I've seen society play with weight or having an appetite or what people should be eating or not eating, and so I think I hear that as like a mean girl slight, like a, wow, you have a really big appetite, is kind of how I hear that quote. Yeah. How do you hear
Interesting. I need to hear it again. Read yours.
This is great. No one has ever believed in me.
You have quite an appetite for a girl.
Ponder. Think.
Yeah, I think it changes if it's all coming from one person, right? Wow, this is great. No one's ever believed in me. You have quite an appetite for a girl. Like, it's almost like an afterthought. It's like, wow, me. I'm finally noticing you. And then being like, oh, you. And then seeing you have, and that's the first thing I noticed because I was so caught up in my thoughts and me, right? So almost in a way, it's like I'm going from self, and when I go from self to out, and I that's interesting in a way because that kind of makes me think about Zuko because he's very much in his mind, and he probably
now he's starting,
and
to
then
focus
he's
on
like,
her.
and all of a sudden he sees her, and the first thing he says is,
well,
right?
That's interesting because I think that might be his first like question or attempt to like engage in a conversation
it
in
is.
that moment.
Yeah, I think it is. Correct us if we're wrong, but that's interesting. Yeah.
All right, let's flip
it.
Yeah.
You have quite an appetite for a girl.
This is great. No one has ever believed in me.
Well, That's pretty clear.
Yeah, that feels like someone's like in a food challenge, like a hot dog eating contest, or like eat this like 36-inch pizza and win $100 and get your picture on the wall. And so for someone to be like, "You got quite an appetite," and be like, "Oh, this person believes in me,"
Or it could be a very sarcastic statement. Oh, this is great. No one's ever believed in me before.
yeah,
Right? And so, like, being called out for liking food.
yeah,
And then all of a sudden being like, cool, I'm going to respond with some sarcasm. I've been thinking about...
like if that's like a Facebook thread or comment thread or something like that, like our YouTube comment thread where like someone's like a cook and someone makes like some little offhanded comment like that at the bottom.
Yeah. That's not what I was thinking. But I don't observe Lent, but I've been thinking that if I did, I would want to give up sarcasm. And that would be really difficult for me. It would be really hard. Side note, just food for thought.
You? I'm kidding.
It would be really hard. Anyway.
Yeah.
So that's the practice of Florilegia.
Yeah.
We tried it.
Florilegia.
Yeah. So we tried it.
It's Latin for words.
If you like this practice, let us know. We'll probably be switching it up pretty soon.
Let's
Maybe
do
one
that.
more episode of this.
And then we'll switch it up.
And then we'll probably switch it up and try something new.
We only have 5 more episodes after this episode.
Oh, wow.
For season 2.
Yikes.
Wow.
Wow.
And then we'll start recording season 3, and we've got some tricks up our sleeves.
Tricks? I don't know about tricks.
We've got some fun things happening.
We
in
do
season
have very
3,
fun things
but we're
happening.
gonna keep that in the bag right now. But that just a little let you know. All right, let's jump to our devotion through air. Ben, what are you gonna do this week when you're thinking about service through the element of air?
So I think my dominant element is earth when we go back to that elements profile.
Mm-hmm.
And
Very grounded, very sturdy.
I'm a pretty balanced in all of them per the profile test. But
Oh, you're like the Avatar.
I would say that my natural inclination is earth, which is let's plan this out. Let's have all the structure in place. Let's know exactly what's going to happen when so that we can make sure there are no errors. And I really want to channel Aang because that was, while it was not as seamless as it could have been, I really loved the windiness of him being able to say, hey, I want to do this, let's do it. And in this time of the COVID-19, the coronavirus, I'm thinking about what is the type of service that I can provide from my home. What is the type of service that I can give from this place that I am in right now? And I want to act on that, and I want to take that into heart as I move forward and figure out how to handle it. And so I've just been thinking about it, and I want to not be held back by don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Yeah, and I think that it really does just go back, because sometimes you have to be messy, right? Like sometimes it's better to be messy and be 50% supportive or helping someone than not at all. And I think for me that's such a beautiful moment in a way that I was honestly going to say something similar. And what I'm trying to do is sometimes it's better to be a little bit messy and mess up a little bit, but still try to serve people to the best of your ability. And it's not going to be perfect. And I think as we handle things like this, it's never going to be perfect, but we still are trying. And I think that's what's important. For me, I just think of the initial uplifting nature that air or wind can have and the rejuvenating spirit it can have and how it can lift things up.
Yeah, we just that gentle breeze.
And for me, that's just how it highlights with service. And the more that we can do for people, the more that we can lift people up in moments where hope seems sparse.
There's the word.
In those moments when hope seems scarce and sparse, I think that's when sometimes our service is most needed. And so finding ways to do that from your home, finding ways to be supportive. Like one of the things we did is we took all our after-school snacks and took it to a food pantry before we kind of closed up shop today.
Smart.
And I think those types of things are just how do we help each other, because we are inextricably connected, and I think that's important.
Here.
Max, anything you want to add for this week's episode?
Not at this time.
Well, it's always a pleasure. Next week, we are going to be jumping into Appa's Lost Days. And we're going to be looking through that through the lens of trauma, which there's a lot there to dissect. And so Ben and I are really excited to jump into that. So join us next week. I'm Sunshine Mayfield.
This has been Pruitt.
And this has been Bending Not Breaking. Thank you for listening.